Hello, my name's James. I'm a portrait photographer from Portsmouth in the UK. You've probably not heard of me, and I welcome you to this, our latest video. We're going back to portrait reviews. We've been asking photographers during this time to send us through 10 of their images for portfolio review via this video format. We've been inundated with emails. So thank you very much for those. We're working through them as quickly as we possibly can. We're taking a trip north of the border now to Montrose in Scotland to visit Hannah Paterson Photography. Here's Hannah Paterson with her website here, looking at all of the images on here with regards to just some really I'm assuming she's blessed with great locations there for her pet portraits, but I know that Hannah was keen to develop her skills as a studio pet portrait photographer, so that's what she submitted to us, and that's what we're going to be looking at today. So without further ado, let's start off with image number 1 here. I'm going to take wild stabs at the breeds of these dogs because I'm in no way a dog expert, but I believe this is a Cocker Spaniel, maybe a Springer, but I think it's a Cocker. And we've chosen a panoramic shot here, wide panoramic with our dog in the center, catch lights in both eyes using a nice big sort of square softbox there. Potentially could have just done with just bringing that softbox round just a little bit more to get a tiny little bit more catch light in here. But I love the tonality through this. This is what struck me about this. Aside from just some bits just on the side of the jawline here and just underneath here where we're just clinging onto those whites, aside from that, what we've actually got is a very slight blue tinge to the to our dog in the foreground. It's just very slight, and that's married up perfectly with this background. The vignette I find slightly off center. It's a little bit darker on the left hand side here, down in this bottom left hand corner where the shadow is falling from our dog from our main light on our right hand side here. It's possibly just a little bit too much, but a real dynamic use of a panoramic in this setting, and just what a very lovely doleful expression there from our pet in the foreground. It's the look. If there's a minor criticism, the look is just off camera lens. It's just above, so we're either looking at an owner or we're looking at the photographer looking up over the camera. And for these straight up and down shots, we're looking at trying to get real contact with the lens and real contact with the viewer then looking at the image. But a very nice relaxed natural portrait of this pet here, so well done. Next one here. Now, I think this is some sort of cross, but I don't know what sort of cross. The best I could come up with was like a Jack Russell Corgi, but I don't think it is. So feel free to correct me. Or answers on a postcard. Put your comments in below if you know what sort of dog this is. We've perched ourselves on the edge of a sofa here. Again, the tonality of the cushion here at the bottom is actually matching the tonality of the background, so that's great. With these studio environments, you have a bit of a leeway when you're doing like environmental portraiture and location portraiture. You have a little bit of leeway because you can't be in control of absolutely everything in that environment. Whereas when you're in the studio, it's much more clinical and there's much less margin for errors, particularly when you're sort of critiquing and judging images from there. I love the way that our pet is perched on the edge here. I just love that. I think that's a lovely little bit of attention to detail. Maybe even be a bit more brave with this rule of thirds. We're sort of straying towards the half here, right down the middle. Bring the crop out on this right hand side just a little bit more. Just make the most of that. Good look at the camera. I love the lopsided ears. I think they're real cute. I think they're just I just think they really help tell the story there of this sort of slightly quirky looking dog here. Not mad keen on the placement of this leg just between the other two legs in the background. That's the only thing I would say. It's just a tiny little bit distraction, and when you start to look at this image in here, it's very bright, that back leg, and it's coming right down through the middle of the other two. So I wouldn't suggest, like, you could potentially crop it out and imagine that it would be behind. You could move it, I don't know, but maybe just a reposition or something like that would just help that image, because as soon as you see it, your eyes drawn to it. And I think it's just the fact that it's just so bright makes it so distracting. Image number 3 here. I think it's a white, again, this is pop quiz for me. I think it's a wide-haired Jack Russell, although I could be wrong. I love this refurbished chair here. I love the cover on it. The cover on it is, again, it's a really nice subtle pattern. It's got a very nice slight sheen to it. So when you shine a light on it, it's got a little bit of a jump off of that very simple simple canvas. Just work on the floor here, just around where the chair's sitting. We can just see the crease marks in the floor just a little bit. So just maybe just work on that in Photoshop to get that out. But this is a cute little expression here. We've just done something that's allowed that dog to do what I call a Warwick Davis. Warwick Davis, when he played Wicket the Ewok in Return of the Jedi, Star Wars, he said that one of the acting things he did was he learnt off his dog. Whenever his dog was curious, he'd sort of cock his head to one side like that, and that's what he did. And it's one of the most synonymous, famous pieces of sort of Return of the Jedi, Star Wars sort of imagery. I'm going on about Star Wars again. I'll bring it back to the image. But yeah, no. But what our dog's done here is we've just cocked the head again. Again, the look is just off that lens, not right down the middle. So again, we're looking at an owner or something to the side. But again, to actually use this is to use this prop is done fairly well. I'm not sure whether it might be worth experimenting with the prop straight on. And everything just feels very central in this image. It doesn't feel like there's a lot of dynamic composition or dynamic placement of anything in the frame, or even a dynamic angle from the camera. Everything's very straight on, very formulaic. So maybe work on where we can place things throughout the frame to give the viewer something more challenging to look at in terms of the placement and everything from there. Next one. I can't imagine like how difficult this is. I think they're kind of miniature Highland Terriers. Again, I'm not entirely sure. I'm happy to be corrected. But obviously, we're looking at what looks like a family. This is a family portrait. Good use of the prop in the foreground to balance them on again. The tonality works in terms of its relation to the foreground and the background. Really nice expressions there. particularly these expressions here on the side are kind of like, by and large, particularly with regards to the bigger dogs, they're fairly relaxed. There's a good sense of sort of composition to the piece. It's very straight up and down. It's very simple. It tells a story. It's lovely, really. There's not a lot aside from maybe just experiment with a second light to bring something behind. So you can even put a light like above your backdrop, hanging over the top, shining down with a grid on, so you're not getting any spill on the background, to hit the backs of the heads and the backs of the ears, just to give you a nice, like a strip box, just to give you a nice bit of separation light on that fur away from the background. And then you're really making strides in your lighting to do something dynamic and to do something different. But I love the way that the dog with the browner face here and the dog with the whiter face here, they're kind of married up because we put the dog with the browner face puppy away and the dog with the more monochromatic puppy here. Look at this little foot though. Little paw's gorgeous. Just a gorgeous shot, just really, really lovely. And I'm sure a hell of a lot of work went in to getting those dogs to be in that position at the same time. If they were at the same time. If they weren't, don't tell anyone. Oh. See, I'm a cat guy. I'm sorry, and that's cats and dogs. What a great look that is. That is intense look, and we've again experimented with our composition and placement within the frame. So instead of going for something that's absolutely straight up and down, we've gone for something that's just off center and just off to the side. But that look into the camera, and believe me, I know how hard it is to get cats in the studio looking and being still and facing the right way and doing all those things. That's a hell of a shot. I think this one would have benefited from some sort of kicker like two. You can do it again in this instance, 2 strip boxes either side with grids on, just coming across and skimming across just to give us a little bit of separation from there. And then experiment with something down here. Something instead of this sort of like this charred lettering that's at the bottom, taking it out and photoshopping something else over potentially that can personalize this for you. Nothing crass, nothing twee, nothing, you know, nothing like that, but just something quite simple that could potentially work in there. The fall off of light, where our light's on the right hand side, we've actually got quite nice detail on the fur on this side, and it's just fallen off, and it's a bit muddier on the left hand side, which is a shame. The easiest way to sort that out on the left hand side, have some sort of white reflector just bouncing just a little bit of light back into our subject there, just to heighten the detail in there on that side. Next image. So here we are again. This is like, it's obviously, sometimes when you look at pet portraits, you don't know the stories behind them and how difficult they were and what the photographer has had to do, sometimes just to get a dog to look still. we used to have a saying, like when we looked at, we're going to take it to sort of children portraiture and baby portraits. If you just had like a straight up child sat looking straight at the camera, just like that, pretty flat, we used to call them sort of passport shots, because they weren't really doing anything else to really help drive any sense of creativity or storytelling. And that's the kind of feeling I get from this absolutely gorgeous dog. The lighting's fine, it's been fairly well exposed, you know, we've got detail pretty much everywhere in that shot, but there's not a lot else in this shot that's actually making me do anything. There's no, the choice of lens as well, I think, is reasonably long, so everything's quite condensed in there for me. Everything's quite compressed in terms of that, so I can't see any shape, can't see how long that nose is, can't see, I'm not really getting a good feel that I want to sort of touch out and grab it. So we need to think of ways that we can change the lighting, because we're very, very over the top and flat going straight onto the subject here, but B, how we can change the pose to sort of give real shape and form to our shots there. See, I quite often say, I can't stand it when they just dress dogs up as humans, and then that's my instinctive reaction when I see it, when I see a little bow tie on a Cocker Spaniel, or a Springer Spaniel in this case, I guess. A chocolate cocker or a chocolate springer, I don't know which. I can never tell the difference. I'm really sorry. I think it's I'm going to say it's a cocker. I think the green is the right choice of colour to go for the tie here. It's just a shame it's just a little bit lost underneath the ear on this side. What I will say at this point as well is all of your pets look very relaxed in their environments. And what that says to me is that you've got a wonderful way of making the owners feel relaxed as well as the dogs, because dogs feed off of their owners. And that's a really difficult thing to do when you're working in studio. To get dogs to come into a real artificial environment with lights, and it's unnerving and it doesn't smell like the things they're used to, and they're not sure about you and all that kind of stuff. To get dogs not look distressed, but to make them look relaxed, is a really, really, really commendable thing. So Hannah should take absolute credit for that. Super, super lovely shot. Because our pet here is leaning slightly to the right as we're looking at it, just slightly, but we're still quite central, I'd have maybe played around with the composition and had our dog on the right hand side of the photo, negative space on the left hand side, just to really draw our eye across. These little things that dogs do when they're not quite central, just lean into them a little bit and make a more dynamic composition as we go in. Light's fairly strong on this side, and again, I think what we've done is we've tried to, it looks like the eyes have been lightened up just by running a dodge tool over the whole thing. Don't do that. Change your dodge setting to just highlights, don't have it on mid-tone, so it's just picking out the catch lights and not everything else. Other than that, totally sellable image. They're going to buy that every time, you know, so that's great. I was stuck on this one. I went for Border Collie Puppy, but I don't know. And when we talk about the cock of the head, this is the cock of the head. This is what we're talking about. I don't think the panoramics bang in the center works on this one. I just don't think it does. Potentially a cropping idea for this one, maybe have an experiment on this one, a square with our subject really down low in the bottom and loads of negative space above. So our eye is drawn down into the image to look at this off-center cocking of the head. Again, just a little bit of care in those dodges of those eyes. But what a moment caught, because there are tricks you can do in studio by making odd noises to get dogs to react in this way, but they only work a couple of times before the dog's used to the sound, and then they're moving on to something else. And typically with dog shoots as well, you don't actually get that long before they want to do something else, or they, you know, so you have to work quickly and effectively, and to capture this moment is really, really commendable, Hannah. It's a lovely, lovely, lovely shot, lovely shot, well caught. And we're back again, I think, to a chocolate springer here. I love the big paws over here. Experiment on this one. When we've got the paws over the top, and when we've got our dog sort of settled and down like that, again, experiment with a wider angle lens. Get close, get underneath, make a big thing of those paws. Make a thing about that dog looking down towards you. Experiment with your wide angles. All of these lens choices seem fairly similar as we're going through. Let's have a little bit of an experiment and see what we can do. Use a super zoom lens and try and create a different angle within that face. Use a wide lens and try and make the most of these paws that are hanging over the edge. Again, I think it would have been benefited from a reflector on the left-hand side here. If you are using one, it's a white reflector, just switch it to a silver one, try and change the angle, try and be a bit more refined with it, try and get a bit more. And again, that cock of the head's great, but the look again is above the camera. So when the owner's working with you, if it is the owner, get them over that shoulder and have them down looking a little bit more into the lens. And last one here, a cat. Real simple shot of the cat. Now, when we're working this symmetrically with cats, when we look at the body here, as soon as I bring it in close, you'll see that it's not symmetrical because we have this element on this side here poking out and this element coming in here. So just a little bit of care, you can grab a little bit of this side and just copy and paste, drop it in on that side, and then you've got a super symmetrical shot. The eyes again, just off, and if they were just on with a bit more contrast and a bit more attention to some of those tones in and around the fur and around here, a little bit of sharpening, something in that, then we're looking at a winner. But this again with the cat is super good control. What I think the overriding thing is that we've got the basic principles of the lighting. We need to experiment with the second light. Potentially there's a separation light, a kicker light, something just to separate off of the background. And we want to start experimenting with our lens choices and start trying to find a style that works for us. We have the tools, Hannah, of making animals and pets comfortable in the environment that we are putting to one side for them. We now need to take it to the next level to create a style that is unique to you. And that's where we go to the next level, if that makes sense. The foundations and the cornerstones of having a successful pet photography business are there. We just need a little bit of refinement in the style from there. But what a joy to look at those photos, and thank you very much for sharing them. If you want to be like Hannah, you want to have a portfolio review, you can do. You can email me, portraitofawrestler@gmail.com. You can follow me on the Instagram and the Twitter @Y2JimBob. If you've liked this video, share it with people, share it on your feed, subscribe at the button below, and as ever, all the very best.